Hi there, it's Jules Chabot here, Celtic wildlife artist, and it is March the 1st. Woohoo, we made it to March, even though it's raining, cold and very windy out there today where we are in rural Derbyshire. But I love March. It's such a feeling of new beginnings, new growth, and better, longer, brighter days to come. So obviously we're transitioning, so it's not like you click the switch, but it's always a nice time of year that I enjoy very much. So I hope you do too. Good morning to everyone joining. Morning Stephen, Susie, Dawn, welcome, welcome. Today's weekly wildlife wisdom is I've got to say one of my favourites, and it's all about snakes and their true energy and wisdom, because these poor beings, courtesy of us human folk, are very misunderstood and are given a really bad rap, as lots of animals are. And I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about that, but then go into what is the truth of who they are and what they can teach us, and how do they relate to that inner part of us that has this energy and wisdom within us that may be it may be held back or misunderstood by us, and how can we begin to shift that for the good of our own lives, but also for the good of all of nature and all of creation. Because when we have fear and even hatred, which is an extreme version of fear, phobias, that sort of thing. Susie saying, I've always loved snakes. Oh, bless you. Yes, they are amazing beings. And I wish everybody did. Whenever you have those strong polarity, negative emotions, it really causes all sorts of trouble for you as an individual, and that's where we can actually make change for good in our lives, is by working on ourselves. But we also transfer that out into the world, and I think at this point on beautiful Mother Earth, we are entering into a phase, a period of evolution where we're really facing this true shadow within us, within most of us as humans, where we really are exaggerating the polarities of our reactions, and where there is difference and misunderstanding, or just a complete ignorance around why beings of any species do and what they do, what they say, how they behave, how they act, what beliefs they have. It creates the potential for real problems, violence, war, persecution, genocide, ecocide, and on it goes. So it causes us really to do so much damage in this beautiful world. And this is what happens often when we transfer, in this example, onto snakes. We have this false belief, this false set of conditioned responses that can be from watching films where snakes are always perceived, pretty much always perceived as being these dangerous, aggressive, violent beings that come at you to get you and they want to kill you, which is complete nonsense. Yes, they will stand their ground, and yes, they will command respect. But of course you would, because you want to stay alive, you want to protect your family, you want to make sure that you're not the one that is harmed. But in general, snakes will do everything they can, and they're so super sensitive, to keep away from us big, noisy, often unaware human folk. And the only time I've ever had the pleasure of encountering wild snakes is literally to see them disappearing off into the distance. And if I've ever come across a snake, which I have maybe once or twice, when they start to give you a warning, as all species will do, they give you a warning to say, go away, leave me alone, don't come any closer. And that is fair warning. And if we miss that, accidentally or not, or we say, well, we're stronger and better than you, then obviously they're going to do what they have to defend themselves. So I really want to sort of, stand firm in my defence, if you like, for snakes, and to say that there's so much more to them. So, and even, beyond that, the layers of Christianity, who really, in many texts, and I'm not being particular to any religion, will talk about the snake as being the equivalent of the devil, all the bad that's in us that we must purge from ourselves. And the Garden of Eden, the snake gets the blame for everything. And so it's just untrue in my set of beliefs. I'm not saying you have to believe this, I'm just sharing my beliefs. So in truth, since our very earliest recollections through our ancestry as human beings, the ancient traditions have always held and known to be true that snakes are sacred. They are sacred beings. All beings are sacred. And they have this amazing, very powerful energy and wisdom that I want to tune into, at least scratch the surface today, because it's a big topic, wisdom and energy of animals. But today, what I want to do is look at snakes, bearing in mind where we are in our evolution, as I say. They can help us with graceful travel. I love that. I'm not quite sure who said that, but I read that somewhere and loved it. Graceful travel. And snakes were always revered as being guardians of sacred space as well. So there's a little bit of an overlap with dragons and snakes, and I can definitely feel that. I'll bet you can feel that too. They're such ancient beings, and they're almost from another time, aren't they? Prehistoric, and very much sort of myth and legend. And they've been written about in many texts, but as you know, we may know, I'm particularly drawn to my ancestry, which is Celtic or Druidic wisdom. And they're very well known to be guardians of the sacred wells around the Celtic site, certainly in Scotland, Wales, down in Cornwall in England, and Ireland, where sacred water sources, underground water sources, which of course when you think about that in the metaphysical, is the sacred feminine, water being very feminine energy, and also the source of all life, which of course is associated with femininity and the feminine energy of creation. So they are very sacred. And so within the Celtic tradition, in fact, and this is a link into my latest piece, which you can see on my grid developing, adders, which are endemic to Scotland and to other parts of the UK, and they're also known as European vipers, for those of you that like the official names, but they're known as adders in the UK. They are oftentimes, back in time, the Druids were called adders, so that gives you an indication of just how important their sacred wisdom and energy was, and still is to this day, to those of us that connect and believe in these nature connected ways of living and being in the world. Now, in my piece, I've got 3 different beings, and the first being that I created was the adder, and it's a female, she's in a figure 8 sign shape, which alludes to infinity. So that's a clue into a little bit of who she is. And also the snake is very linked to, I mention this quite a lot because it's so important, the cycle of birth, life, death, and then rebirth as a never-ending eternal, if I can do it right without thinking too much, symbol of, never-ending, perpetual motion, different doorways, different avenues. Dawn, hi Dawn, she's saying, I recently had a close encounter while going for a wild wee. Oh my goodness, that is a bit threatening and a bit putting yourself in a vulnerable position. I'm sure the snake was more frightened than I was. I love that. I'm sure they headed off for the hills as well, didn't they? Which they always do. But yeah, that's a close encounter, not to be forgotten, Dawn. Wonderful. So this idea of life, death, rebirth is, I think it's one of the biggest challenges that most of us humans are faced with in our life, is integrating and having faith that we are all born, and this links into the snake, which I'll come on to in a second. We're all born, we all live our life, and we hopefully learn and get wiser and more peaceful and more helpful and more in service to the world, doing good and being good, living in the moment, staying present and bringing peace into the world. You'd hope we were all doing that. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we were? And that at some point we are going to die. We're going to leave this physical body, and we're going to, whatever happens to our soul, whatever your beliefs happen to be, the soul is going to come out of that body. And I believe this is the same with all beings, whatever species they are. And life continues in a different form. Now, it might not be in the physical form of being here on Mother Earth, but it continues, and then there is a rebirth. Now, again, I'm not going to get into that in terms of my beliefs, but you fill in the blanks there. But we often have so much resistance around that death cycle that it creates, again, so much fear, so much denial, so much fighting, so much resistance and illness from this fear, that the snake teaches us when we tune in and when we build relationship and when we honour and respect them and listen in a state of meditation, whether that's out in nature or sat meditating quietly. They will teach us to let go of those fears, to release those fears, and to embrace the fullness and the eternal nature of that journey. Even though as humans we like to have factual, often science-based evidence, we won't get that. We won't get that. But we can have faith and we can trust that when we tune in to our ancestors, to source, however you perceive that, and we trust and we lean into that trust, we can become at peace with it. And that's what snakes, part of what snakes are showing us. I love this other quote that I read. It's the journey through the labyrinth from this world to the next and back again, which I love. I love that idea, and I think that's so snaky in the form of a labyrinth, going to the centre and then coming back out again and then going back to the centre. So it's a different way of perceiving that cycle, but nevertheless, beautifully for me, I think that summed up how snake energy can really help us with that perpetual movement. They're also, as I've suggested, really deeply connected with the other world, or the underworld, as the Celtic tradition would call it. So whatever is on the other side of being here in our physical body, that the snakes are able to help us to commune and to learn and really deeply connect with our hearts back into the fluidity of what I would call between the veils, between the two worlds, between and through and around and in all aspects of experience and consciousness. So you can ask snake. I would always say with any being you're going to ask to work with, no matter whether they could potentially bite you or hurt you in any way, that's irrelevant to me. You should be massively respectful and honour them and build relationship with them before starting to ask them to help you. And also you need to be, in my opinion, asking them how you can help them and their physical family that live in this world, and what can you do to be of assistance. Doesn't mean you have to, you know, be a global influencer, but you may be able to do acts of kindness that will help their kind, and so it's a mutual and mutually beneficial relationship, which is how you would hope all good relationships are, based on that. So also with snakes, they are connected very centrally to sacred sexual energy, which of course there's a lot of baggage around sexuality and all of that with us humans. I think there's so much of that happening at the moment, but it's always been there. But when you think about it, the only way we can come into life on planet Earth is through this sacred act of sexual union. So it's a huge creative force, and that is sacred. And so the snake is associated with this. And it's also about, within each of us, we have this sacred energy. And it's always depicted in lots of different traditions as being an energy that runs up the whole length of our spinal cord, and it's connected to our energy centres or chakras or whatever you want to call them in our body. And in Gaelic it's called, let me see if I can pronounce this, I'm not very good at Gaelic, Nwy Fara. Okay, it's Nwy Fara, it's spelled N-W-Y-V-R-E. Nwy Fara, but it's also known much more commonly in our world as Kundalini energy. And this is very, very closely connected to the snake. And you will, if you research this, you'll find that there are images of snakes, the serpent, up our spine in pictures, images of that. And this life force energy is essential for us to live full, embodied, empowered experiences here on Earth. And so the snake can really help us. Now, the snake is a teacher that must be revered and must be honoured and treated with the greatest of respect. And the work that they will guide you toward intuitively must also be held in very high levels of respect and I was going to say caution, which makes it sound frightening, but yeah, caution I think is wise. If you see a snake in the wild, you are wise to be cautious and to give them plenty of space and to not accidentally, you know, infringe on their boundaries. It's the same with this. So this life force energy, which in its purest sense, we were talking yesterday, and I'll mention my co-live yesterday at the end, because we've got much more chats on there about very closely connected information. Can't remember what I was saying now. What was I saying? Oh, I've done it. Oh, it's gone. I love being this age. Oh, Susie, bless you. They so easily shed their beautiful skin. And I've remembered, thank you for that. I have my next note is shed their skin. So we're in tune with each other. But what I was going to say is snakes will help us to release and shed. So beautiful segue. Thank you, Susie. Non-serving beliefs, non-serving behaviours, non-serving mistaken phobias and mistaken thinking. And that's what we are encouraged to do on our journey here, on our lifetime here, is to get rid of those things that block us from being who we're meant to be. Hi, Helen, she's saying, I think if you read something, if you dream about a snake, sorry Helen, it's a warning. In a particular person in your life is not to be trusted. Yeah, it can be, Helen. Again, I'm not an expert in dreams, but over the years I've heard lots of different people talking about snakes in dreams. It depends, and this is what I believe, so I'm not saying this is true. I think it depends on the nature of the snake in your dream, what they're doing, What's your relation to them in the dream? Are you with them? Are they a particular sort of snake? You can look up and research more about the particular type of snake and their behaviour and what their life is like. But yeah, if they are acting in a particularly untrustworthy manner, you know, it looks as if they are trying to, human belief, trying to come and get you, which rarely happens unless we infringe on them. And then, yeah, it could definitely be about that. No, apologising for interrupting. Helen, I love your interruptions. Please interrupt as much as you like. I love everybody commenting and getting involved. So, no, that's brilliant. So, yeah, so this idea of snakes shedding their skins. So they fully release their whole skin, which includes the skin over their eyes as well. So everything, the skin that comes off in totality, and then this brand new layer is revealed, which has grown and got bigger, and that's how they get bigger and bigger. And that's really, really a beautiful metaphor for everything I've just been saying and you guys have been adding into so beautifully. So they hold these keys to healing and rebirth. You know, we're all on our own paths with our own ancestors, our own experiences, our own beliefs and real purposes for being here. So each of us, and only us alone, can really engage with our own healing journey through connection to our God, our guides, our ancestors, however you see that. So that's where for me it becomes essential that we start this practice of listening in. Susie says, that's good to know. I was just thinking it's been a long while since I've dreamed about a snake. It's fascinating. Very, very powerful ancient symbol. So definitely worth noticing your dreams and then just thinking a bit more about, you know, the nature of the dream and the context and what the messages could be coming from the dream. They're never straightforward. They're always cryptic, which just makes you do a bit more work, which I think is a good thing. Makes you just feel into it a bit more. So there you are. I've realised the time. I've chopped on a bit more than I normally would today, but there's so much here. I've got more here, but I think we'll stop today. And as usual, I will come back to snake. I'll maybe do a little bit more on snake when my current piece is finished. Susie's saying yes, she keeps a dream journal. Brilliant, me too. It's a really good idea because you'll often forget them as you know you wake up in the morning. So if you can jot them down, even if you're half asleep, that's a good way of just holding on to that beautiful wisdom. But yes, so I'm going to love you and leave you in peace. I hope you've enjoyed snake energy today. I've loved sharing more with you and hearing your wonderful comments and observations as well. And I'll be back, all being well, next Friday. As usual, we'll wait and see who comes forward. I've also got unicorn and lion in my latest piece, so I'm going to do something around those, but I'll wait to get the go-ahead for that. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thank you for those of you watching the replay. I'd love to hear your comments and likes once the replay's up, so that helps to spread this message. And yeah, look on my grid as well. If you haven't seen, I did a lovely co-live yesterday with Laura Marjorie Miller, who's a wonderful, lovely soul, who's an animal communicator and an artist and much more than that. And we talk a lot more. If you haven't seen it, have a look on my grid from yesterday. It's definitely a cup of something nice and a comfy chair, because we talked for about 1 hour and 20. But it was a lovely conversation, and I'd love you to tune into that if you're interested. So take care. Thank you everybody so much, and see you hopefully next Friday. Bye for now. Bye.